So now that we understand what SQL is, how can we discover it? As explained and as we've seen in the XSS examples, the bottom concept is the same. We always look for places in the web applications where we can manipulate the input. So again, all the arguments that you see, all of the parameters, all of the post and the GET requests, anywhere that you could manipulate as a user, you should test it for SQL injections. How do we perform the test? Very simple. We try to inject a statement that returns a false and analyze what happens on the website if the website breaks. And then we try to inject a statement that returns a true, and that shouldn't break the website. So if the true statement does not break the website and the false statement does break the website, then the website is actually accepting whatever we're giving it. So it's executing the statements we give it. And therefore, from there, we conclude that it's vulnerable to SQL injections, and then we can inject other queries that allow us to access the database or upload files or read files and so on. So let's go ahead to the first example and have a look at how we would go about discovering an SQL injection. As you can see in here, we have a normal shop website. As mentioned before, you should go ahead and test every single aspect of the website, use it as a normal user, see how the website works normally without exploiting it. So you get an idea of what the pages look like first, so that when you break the pages, you know what a good page or a normal page looks like and what a broken page looks like. So anyway, you can see here from the top, you can actually filter products based on the tags we have in here or the categories. So for example, if we click on accessories, you will see that it's going to filter the products that we have in here, and you're only going to see the accessories. Also, if you look here on the top, you will notice that the category is equal to accessories. So we have a parameter called category, and the value that is being sent is accessories. Now, straight away, if you look in here, you'll see that the title in here says accessories. So if you apply what we learned before, you're going to try to manipulate this and play with it. So if we just type anything after the accessories, you can see that it's being reflected in here. And therefore, before you even try in SQL injections, you should actually try a HTML injection as shown before, and then try an XSS, because you have user input that is being directly reflected on the page. And that's usually a really good cue to test for XSS and HTML injections. Now, this is not our topic, so that's why we're not going to do that. But I'm just trying to tell you how I would go about a pen test if this was a real world scenario. What we're trying to test for is SQL injections. So we're just going to go back to what it was. It just said accessories. And to test for SQL injections, we want to put a true and a false statement as mentioned in here. Now, before we do that, let's try to understand what's happening when you actually go to this website, when we're sending this URL to the server. What happens is we have an SQL query. This is the original query that is being executed by the web application. It's doing something like this. It's using a select query from a table called shop, where the category is equal to the user input. So in our case, it's called accessories in here, not food and drink. But in this example, the category is food and drink. So what you see in here in yellow is the user input. Everything in white is being written by the web application itself. We can't really play with this. We can only change what's written in yellow, because whatever we put in here after the equal sign is being placed in yellow between the two quotation marks in here. So what we're essentially trying to do is we're trying to inject our own code in here. If we manage to do that, this will be sent to the database engine, and it will be executed by the database engine, which will retrieve whatever data we want to retrieve from the database. So the injection is going to look like this. You have the name of the category, food and drink. We're going to write our own single quote to close this. So as you can see, the web application itself closes it in here, but we're going to add that manually in the input. And then we're going to say and 1 is equal to 1. And we're adding 2 minuses after it, because this can be used as a comment to comment the extra quote that the web application adds by itself, because we're adding our own manually. So the resulting statement is going to be select star from shop, where the category is equal to food and drink, and 1 is equal to 1. Now we know 1 is equal to 1 is true, and we know that there is a category called food and drink, and therefore this statement should not affect the execution of the page. The main thing you want to pay attention in here is we're manually adding a single quote to close the quote that the web application opens itself, and there we're using a comment at the end to basically tell the web application to ignore this last quote that is added by the web application itself, because then we will have an extra open quote, and that would break the whole query in here, because every open quote should be closed. Then we're going to run a false statement, and this time we're saying select star from shop, where the category is food and drink, which is true, and 1's equal to 0. Now this time it's false. Now if the page breaks when we do this, then we know that the web application is actually executing whatever queries we're sending it, and therefore we will know we can use other SQL queries in here to communicate directly with the database and retrieve whatever data we want from it. So let's go ahead and test this. Right now we're actually opening a category called accessories, and we're going to add our single quote after it, and we're going to say and 1 is equal to 1, and then we're going to add our comment. And perfect, as you can see, the page loaded exactly the way it should be. Nothing changed in the page. So this means this statement that we added did not affect the execution of the page, which is what we're expecting because it's true. So we're selecting the category that is called accessories, and 1's equal to 1, which is true. Now let's change that and say 1 is equal to 0. And perfect, as you can see now the page broke, which means that even though there is a category called accessories, the web application is not able to retrieve it, and that's because we said and 1 is equal to 0, which is false, which is breaking this select query because the query is becoming like this, and therefore now we know that we are able to manipulate this web application and inject SQL queries in here, and whatever we put in here is actually going to be executed on that website.